Welcome to Anchor Moments. I'm Gina LeBenz, and I'm here with my good friend Mark, who makes carpets really, really clean. So many people in the Chandler Chamber know Mark because of his Magic Touch carpet cleaning, that when he gives his commercial, everybody in the room says it together because they just love him, and he's just such a fun guy. But what they don't know is that Mark has a really amazing ministry that he does. But I'm going to let him tell a little bit more about himself first. Hey, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Mark. I have 5 sons. And out of the 5 sons, there's 2 sets of twins. So I got one in there that is 25-year-old and no twin brother. So I do have 35-year-old twins, and I have 20-year-old twins.
Wow, that's a lot of twins. Wow.
Yeah.
And all boys.
All boys. And I'm married. Recently married to Cindy. Cindy is, let's see, about 2.5 years now.
Oh, okay.
And so we live down in South Chandler. And we have a great grandson that we see quite a bit on her side of the family. His name is Jaden. He's 5 years old.
Oh.
We really have fun with him.
Yeah.
I guess the most recent news is that all 5 of my sons and myself, we bought a boat together. And we did this a couple of months ago, so it's really brought the the times.
Yeah.
So good family time.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful.
So, and I'm a business owner. We own Magic Touch Carpet Cleaning, and it's a family-owned company. So 3 out of 5 of those kids work at the company.
Okay.
And so my life is about the carpet cleaning company, family, grandson, my wife. God's a big part of our family. And I started a ministry about 15 years ago, which is a big part of our life in the fall, in the spring.
Okay.
And it's called Weekend Missions.
Weekend Missions.
Yes. Yeah. Weekend Missions started April of 2004. And I didn't know that we were really starting anything.
Okay.
And so what happened was I had become a Christian about 1.5 years before that. And during that 1.5 years, I was searching for that outreach, certain outreach, because the church I was going to, I was constantly hearing about mission trips and outreach. And so when I decided to follow Jesus, immediately what was going on inside of me was I need to find that outreach where I'm supposed to be. And what happened was the church I was going to, they went on 1 mission trip per year.
Okay.
And so when I became a Christian in January of 2002, the trip was in February. And so I went into the church office and I said, I got to go on this trip. And they said, well, you can't. And I said, what do you mean I can't? And they said, well, we're full. And I said, oh man, you mean I got to wait another year?
Oh.
So it just, that kind of thing wasn't making sense.
And your heart was on fire.
Right.
Your heart was on fire.
Here I am, 45 years old, and became, turning my life over to Jesus in January of 2002. And I just wanted to go on that mission trip because I'd been hearing about it in church for 4 or 5 years. It took me a while to figure it out. I was probably going to church for 7 years at this church on and off. And finally I hit a point one day that, I need to follow Jesus because what I'm doing ain't working. So,
wow. And they couldn't let you go on it because it was full.
It was full, yeah. And so I ran into the lead pastor not too long ago, who I didn't get to talk to at the time, but he says, I didn't know that story. He says, if I would have known that story, I would have made sure you were on that trip. But I heard that, 14 years later.
Yeah, a little late now.
So, but anyway, what happened is a friend of mine, he was down on vacation in Rocky Point with his family, and he got the Rocky Point Times, which is the newspaper down there, and he was reading the newspaper, and he saw that the women's rehab center down in Rocky Point had a need to build bathrooms and showers. They didn't have any.
Oh,
so here they are at
goodness.
the rehab center, you got like 20 women that are, going through rehab. They have nothing. And then they show up at the rehab center, there's no bathroom, showers, laundry, there's none of that.
Oh my goodness.
And so, so the newspaper had a contact name and phone number. And so the friend of mine, he just asked, is there anybody that would like to pick up the ball on this and so we can work on this? And so I volunteered and made the phone call. And 2 weeks later, I was down in Rocky Point. And this is the first trip now that I went to Rocky Point where it wasn't a vacation.
Okay.
So, because before that, everything was about me. Okay.
It's right by the ocean. So those of you who don't know, as Arizonans, we know where Rocky Point is.
Right.
But for the rest of the world, if you don't know where Rocky Point is, it is a beautiful place in Mexico that's on the coast. And so it's, beautiful beaches. It's a lot of fun to go down there.
And it's about a 4-hour drive from Phoenix.
Yeah, and so it's really nice.
And so you're in a third world country in 4 hours.
Yeah.
And the poverty in half the city is pretty bad. It's not good. And so anyway, I find myself going to Rocky Point, and now I'm starting to worry about where am I going to stay. This is a whole different trip versus a vacation.
Right.
And
when he says it's a third world country too, in Rocky Point, they have beautiful condos and things along the ocean for people that would want to go for vacation. But then they also have a lot of areas that are just very, very, very poor.
Right. It's like, rich, poor. It's, and you don't have to drive that far, really.
Okay.
So about half of that city, I keep hearing there's 100,000 people living there. I don't know if it's that many, but it's somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 that live there. So approximately half are in poverty. And so anyway, I was so uncomfortable about where I was going to end up staying. And so I made a decision. I thought that, I need to go down there and do this outreach. And I made a decision on this first trip that, okay, I'm not going to stay anywhere. I'm going to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday.
Wow.
Okay.
And just work straight through and then drive home.
Right. So I got down there. Actually, another friend of mine came with me. And we got down there about 8 a.m. and we drove right to the Women's Rehab Center. And I'll never forget when we entered the poverty area, which all you have to do is just go off of a main street. Just drive off of a main street, and all of a sudden, 2 blocks in, it's, But anyway, for me, it was the first time really seeing poverty, and I was speechless. I mean, I just couldn't talk. I didn't know how to process it, the first time. And I just realized that my life of having a big house and having nice cars and having a nice backyard, all that stuff, all of a sudden just didn't mean anything anymore after seeing what I was seeing. And so anyway, just driving down the street to the Women's Rehab Center, I'll never forget it because it just, we didn't know what to say. Neither one of us said a word. So we drove about 8 blocks. just in silence. And I think each of us did not know how to process what we were seeing. And so anyway, we got to the Women's Rehab Center. We prayed together as a group, and then we got to work. And that first day, I'll never forget it. It was the day before Palm Sunday, and it was in April of 2004, and the wind was blowing. Well, Rocky Point is basically all sand. So when the wind was blowing, the sand was blowing. So the sand was just hitting your skin and your face all day long. So, here we were framing for these bathrooms and showers, and the sand was just, just blowing all day long. So anyway, we quit about 4 or 5, somewhere around in there. And we just did a quick tour of the city, and then we drove home. And, I remember driving home. I remember getting home. And at that time, I lived in a very nice house, 3,000 square foot house. And I was living in the house by myself because the marriage that I was in was ending. I was going through a divorce. And I think the divorce might have been final right about in that time, but the 2 years prior to that, it was just it wasn't a very pretty divorce. And but here I was living in this 3,000 square foot house and realizing that this is ridiculous. And I realize that my priorities now, after becoming a Christian a year and a half before, I realized my priorities just needed a complete shift. And so anyway, the trip had a huge impact on me. And so then I shared it with my small group, and my small group at church was men only. And so I shared it with them, and 6 weeks later I had 6 guys coming down to help on the project. And we did this about every 6 weeks for the rest of that year. And we got the project done mid-December. So they had bathrooms, they had showers.
And you had some people that were plumbers with you too, right? Like,
one of them,
because I wouldn't know how to do that.
Well, one of them was a plumber. He's still with us to this day.
Good.
His name is Vincent. But he's not really the plumber, hands-on plumber, but he could tell us what to do.
Okay.
And so he was kind of like the supervisor that knew what to do.
Well, yeah, because you need somebody who knows that. I mean, you can't just. I'm like, I can't wrap my head around how you made the pipes to get to water, so the toilets can flush and you can have a shower.
Yeah, so he knew all that. In fact, all the pipes were, before we started, the slab was laid. And the piping was already done coming out of the slab. So we worked on this project, me and 6 to 8 other guys, for the rest of the year, about every 6 weeks.
Okay.
So we would just get our money out before each trip, to pay for the supplies. And at the end of the year, we were done. Well, when we got done, a couple of things happened. One, the director of the center, she shared with us that last Christmas, her and the women in the center prayed for new bathrooms and new showers by Christmas of next year.
Wow, and you did it.
And we did it. We were done by the middle of December.
Oh.
And
that is such a beautiful anchor moment.
yeah,
Mark.
really hit me hard.
Yeah.
And the other thing, though, that had happened is I realized that these trips, and I can't remember how many there were. I'm just going to say 6 or so, 7.
Yeah.
Just in that 8-month period, I realized that I was a different person now. And and I was a better person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that's when I realized I need to share this experience with other people. And so that's how Weekend Mission started. So then I started sharing, we put dates down for mission trips, and and we had new projects now, and so I started sharing it with other people and letting them know, hey, here's an opportunity to go on a mission trip just for a couple of days. You leave on Friday, get back home on Sunday. You're not really missing any work. It's very inexpensive. You don't have to get on a plane and fly to the other side of the world.
Right.
And you can probably do this for $100 or $150, and
make a difference.
All of a sudden, yes. And all of a sudden, well, the thing is that the more you get out of yourself, instead of dealing with yourself, get out of yourself and serve others, all of a sudden your life becomes just, well, if you have problems with drama, that goes right out the window. So anyway, we shared this, and so we were going on trips every 2 months. And every 2 months, the first trip was like 22, then the next trip was like 33, then the next trip was like 38, then it was like 45, then the next trip was 58, next trip was 76. Well, anyway, this kept going on. All of a sudden, we hit 108 people.
Wow.
And I thought, I don't think this thing is going to stop, And so after a couple of years, this is still going on every couple of months. And, there was a lot of people that were involved helping make it work,
Yeah.
A lot of people that were, that somebody buy the groceries, somebody buy the supplies, somebody would organize this, somebody would organize that. And so after 2 years, I kind of realized that, for me, maybe this season is over. It's time for me to move on. And so I tried to move on. And so during that year, I realized that, there's not really somebody here that was passionate like I was those first couple of years. So there's not really somebody here that's willing to take that mantle. Well, basically what I think is that God was telling me, look, buddy, this is your calling. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You don't just come in here and do it for a couple of years. You're here to do this for a while. And so I went through a year of this battle with God. Really, God? Come on.
Yeah.
And so I realized, okay, I'm making the commitment.
Yeah.
So I realized then that I needed to keep doing it. So it was obedience to Him. And so anyway, just fast forward a little bit. Now it's 2009, and we're doing these trips every 2 months.
Wow.
And I was driving back home on one of the trips, and we were doing about 7 trips a year. Okay. So that means one Saturday, because the trips are really one day of service. Okay. So I was driving back, and, I had people in the car, but I was thinking, and I realized, we're only down here 7 days a year. Big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's 365 days in
right,
a year,
right.
and only 7 of them are the ones that you're really sweating it out, doing some hands-on.
And so I just thought, who do we think we are? I thought this is. So I had to take our, maybe the heads that were getting big and realizing we're nothing. We've got this. We're not making a commitment here. So anyway, the idea was then we need to plant roots here.
Okay.
And we need to be a 24/7 ministry here in Rocky Point.
Okay.
So my idea was that, okay, we need to find a closed down restaurant because there was plenty of them at the time. It was 2009, remember 2008.
Oh, yeah.
So, the economy down in Rocky Point follows the American economy.
Right.
And so, you had these closed down restaurants, and I thought we just need to find one of these closed down restaurants. So I contacted a real estate agent in Rocky Point, and she gave us a list of the closed down restaurants, and it was like 2 pages. So there was probably, I don't know, 15 different properties.
Okay.
Well, then at the bottom, on page 2, was this hotel. And, you know, it was a closed down hotel. It had been closed down for 10 years. And so one of the guys that was with me, he said, look at this hotel. I said, I told her closed down restaurants. I don't know why that hotel is there. And so he says, well, let's go look at it. And I said, no, why? We don't want a hotel. And he goes, Mark, it doesn't cost anything to go look at it.
That's true. That's true. And you probably could feel the calling on it, too.
And when he said that, I knew right away, oh boy, you're right, it doesn't cost. So let's go look at it. What does it hurt?
Right.
And I thought, okay, let's go look at it. So anyway, we went to church Sunday morning. It was the end of a trip. And we thought, well, do we want to look at it? We can't get a hold of the real estate agent on Sunday. You know, we can't look at it. Well, why don't we just go over there? So we go over there, we find a hole in the fence, and we go through the fence. And so we go look at the property ourselves. And there's a couple of homeless people living there. It'd been, it was basically, it was vacant.
Vacant for 10 years. That's a long time.
I mean, all the electrical wiring was stripped out of the, everything was stripped out. Everything was.
Okay.
So you had 2 or 3 homeless people living there. There'd been a couple of fires from the homeless people. Just, you can imagine what it looks like. But it had great concrete structure.
Okay.
And good bones, as some people would say. And I had studied architecture in high school and college. And so I could see, what it could be. And there was a beautiful courtyard there. Well, it wasn't beautiful, but you could see that it could be. Yeah.
Right. Could
and
be
then
again.
It had a swimming pool, and it had a good-sized dining room, and it just had a big common area, but it was a mess. And the owner, he wanted $400,000 for this property. And, it's probably a total of 15,000 square feet. That's about what I think it is. And so he wanted $400,000 and he wanted $200,000 down. Okay, so $200,000 down to us was like, we don't have that. Right. Okay, we're a nonprofit.
Right.
You know how much money we have in the bank. So anyway, we got to talking, and the negotiations lasted about 6 months. And at one point, I just said, "Look, we don't have $200,000, and this is never going to be a hotel again because everything's out on the beach now. It's out on where the resorts are at, and this place is in town." And now this hotel was the hotel in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
So it was a big deal back then.
It was the place. In fact, there's been Hollywood people that have stayed there. The president of Mexico stayed there. Oh, yeah. So
it used to be fabulous.
It had its day. Yes, it had its days, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, the 90s is when the resort started getting built, and that's what killed it.
Killed it, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we were talking in the seller. He wasn't a Christian, but I told him, I said, you know what we do now because I've been telling you what we do, and he really liked it. And I said, this isn't about me buying this hotel. God's leading me to get this hotel, and I didn't mean to scare him. But he started shaking when I said that. I mean, he was like this.
Wow.
And I just said it because
it's the truth.
And so anyway, I don't know what happened, but remember he wanted $400,000 with $200,000 down. Well, somehow, some way, we bought it for $160,000.
And what'd you do with it? We have 2 minutes left.
Well, $10,000 down is all we had to pay.
Awesome. That's so awesome. And what'd you turn it into?
Well, it's now a place where everybody stays. So when people go on a mission trip,
oh, okay. They have a
that's where
place
they
to stay.
We stay together as a group.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
work on other things in the city to make it better.
Right, right.
Wow. And you got it for a steal.
Yes. Well, I don't
But
wanna
it's
say-
really helping. Well,
Well,
no, but
we've-
it's a nonprofit.
we've
and
hit-
you needed,
We
yeah.
had a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money has been spent on
yeah.
getting it
Yeah, because
redone.
that was, it didn't have electricity, didn't have anything. So you had to pull all, that was probably a bunch of mission trips just to make that work.
It was.
Wow, and now it's their place that they can stay.
Yeah. And the city was great. They helped us. You know, they pulled up our first weekend there. They had garbage trucks pulling up, and we were pulling the garbage out, and they were just helping us haul the garbage away.
Wow.
So the city was right there helping us.
Oh yeah, because then look at all those people that you get to bring
Right.
that can do stuff to help
Right.
everybody else in the city and
Right.
to make it all better. And it was the only property, it wasn't supposed to be there, but it was.
Right.
So you know God put that property
Oh,
on
yeah.
that list of restaurants for you to be able to do that.
Right.
You know, seriously.
Right.
Well, Mark, I'm sorry to say we have 59 seconds. I always like to end with a prayer.
Okay.
And we can pray for anything that's on your heart.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and start.
Okay. Dear Lord, I have two sons right now where they lost their mother about 10 days ago. And it's been really tough on my two twin sons and their three brothers, stepbrothers, but they all feel like they're brothers. And I just ask that you help bring comfort to everybody, and just help them just realize that Satan is the one that wants you to grieve. God wants you to move forward. Satan wants to keep you in the grief. And it's tough because we're human. And I just ask God to just help us move forward past all that.
Mm-hmm. And God, please help everybody who goes on Mark's mission trips. Amen.
Amen.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.